принято решение о проведении специальной военной операции. Ее цель – защита людей, которые на протяжении 8 лет подвергаются издевательствам, геноциду со стороны киевского режима. И для этого мы будем стремиться к демилитаризации и денацификации Украины, а также преданию суду тех, кто совершил многочисленные кровавые преступления против мирных жителей, в том числе и граждан Российской Федерации.
War is dehumanizing. It is one of the worst phenomena to have ever resulted from human nature. It actively destroys humanity and has a very real possibility of annihilating us as a species. It is in our best interests that all war be brought to an end. In times of war, the peace, so often taken for granted, becomes highly valued. While civilians and soldiers have wished for peace since the beginning of warfare, the importance of stressing peace instead of fulfilling an agenda made by uber-rich politicians has been a fairly recent phenomenon, only having taken full effect since the 1960s from the Vietnam War, when people truly started understanding the ideals of democracy, equality, and peace, and kinda thought, yo, they're people too. I think we should not just kill them mercilessly. Peace is a good thing, to most of us, and yet the one thing that remains constant throughout human history is the cold-heartedness of those in power. To these folks, peace existed as nothing but a hindrance to their oh-so-great plans of domination. But times have shifted. Peace is now being used as an ideological tool by those in power to enforce their agenda. To basically go, look, we support peace and saving lives. We're such good people. You should support our cause too. Since human nature is as such, there was little humanity could do, short of violent revolution, to combat the concept of war. Until democracy rolled around and people were given the choice of, choosing who the ruler was. Before democracy, autocrats suppressed most forms of positive change, the dismantling of war as an institution being one of those changes. Although democracy existed as early as the 18th century in the form of constitutional monarchies, it wasn't until the latter half of the 20th century that the tide started to truly shift. All that aside, what I really want to talk about are truces and the similar quote-unquote acts of peace that we see today, and why they may truly have just a hidden agenda. A truce, or a ceasefire, is a temporary cessation in the fighting in any armed conflict that is done by both fighting parties for various purposes. Either it can be done between the two parties themselves, or if it's between two countries, by being imposed upon by the UNSC via Chapter 7 of the UN Charter. Let's talk about history's most ideal truce, the one that redefined peace as an idea, the Christmas Truce of World War I, 1914. On 24th of December 1914, that is Christmas Eve, the soldiers of both sides, Germany and basically the Allies, declared a truce. They shared foods, drinks, and basically just vibed, even playing a very well-known football match. It is especially important to note that the truce was brought upon by the soldiers themselves, who didn't wish to fight each other on a day as auspicious to them as Christmas, since they were Christians. The officers, on the other hand, were kind of just losing it, but they couldn't do much since you can't fight a war without soldiers. This truce is undoubtedly the most iconic truce ever made. World War I, one of the bloodiest and most terrifying conflicts in human history. A war that marked a new age in the history of humanity, ended up having this tremendous moment of peace in it. Now I'd like to draw attention towards Russia's proposed Christmas truce during the Russo-Ukraine war. Basically, everybody's favorite bear-humping shirtless Russian, Vladimir Putin, declared a temporary ceasefire to celebrate Orthodox Christmas on January 1st, 2023, to take place for 36 hours from January 6th. Ukraine did not accept, claiming it was a cynical plan for Russian troops to gather themselves up, and that Putin was only trying to get some breathing room for himself. You know it's bad when your own soldiers mock your decision. Putin, being Putin, kept demonizing Ukraine and kept attacking as well. Well, why didn't it work? The answer lies in the differing situations of 1914 and 2023. First off, the most striking difference is who started the truce. The World War I Christmas truce was initiated by the soldiers themselves, who kind of didn't understand the meaning of the war they were fighting, and thus didn't see the opposition as their enemies but rather as competitors. However, in the second instance, the truce was proposed and quote unquote applied by Putin as a means of showing his religious citizens whose respect for the holy spirit of Christmas and the world of his supposed peace-loving leadership. This is something common to a myriad of peaceful acts done in the modern day. There's no actual regard for life in these cases, there's always an agenda. Secondly, there was the factor of the soldiers themselves. Now, I have incredible respect for the army and all soldiers that give up their lives for the nation, regardless of which side they fight for. So I would like to apologize in advance if I say anything offensive with regards to the military. In World War I, many soldiers didn't know what they were truly getting themselves into. Back in the day, most soldiers were sent to war without knowledge of the true cause. They were just sent to kill because the leader ordered it. The military propaganda back in the day exploited this lack of information the people had. And well, it worked. They were promised glory and honor, but ended up having to go through hells that came from the worst of humanity's imagination. The soldiers in World War I quickly lost morale and any belief in the cause they were fighting for, so they ended up just trying to survive. That is why they held pity and brotherhood for soldiers on the other side, which led to the success of the ceasefire. Sadly, the same can't truly be said about modern military conflicts. The amount of modern military conflicts is decreasing due to the democratic process favoring less combatant rulers. However, when the occasion war does break out, you see a whole different level of morale among those fighting. While propaganda is one such reason, there is also another reason: democracy boosting the patriotism. When the country is run by the people feel a greater sense of responsibility and love for it, and are more willing to fight for it because then the nation is truly their own. That's partly the reason Ukraine's fighting has been so effective against Russia. Ukraine, being a democracy, has a population loyal to defending it, and that isn't even taking Eastern Europe's insane nationalism into consideration. However, with the case of Russia, which is clearly not a true democracy, and the people having genuinely lost hope in the nation, you can see why a lot of Russian troops are surrendering to the Ukrainian troops, and you don't see much of the other way around. Democracy makes people more patriotic and more proud of their own countries, because a democracy lets the people shape the nation, in turn making them value the nation more. As opposed to ceasefires between nations, ceasefires between a nation and a militant organization or multiple militant organizations can be difficult or nearly impossible to negotiate due to radicalization, and a very good and well-known example is obviously between the Middle East and the West. Radicalization refers to adopting more radical and often more violent methods against the opposing party. With such organizations, the members are often more than ready to give up everything for their cause, and thus they really can't be reasoned with until their demands have been met. Radicalization can also be a product of insufficient democracy. A lack of democracy can reduce one's loyalty to their nation, but conversely can push one to militarization. Peace is a vital tool in today's world, and it's democracy that can truly assure it. But it seems that those in power must paradoxically be forced to accept peace. We must uproot the source of the problem. It's not a we are only human type of situation. Only we are human, and only we can fix our problems. There's a lot we can do to make those in power listen to us, and it isn't just restricted to elections. Our freedom of speech is our most powerful weapon. We can protest, spread our ideas, and do much more to influence change. Propaganda is not only a tool for politicians, it is a tool for all who can think. And we can spread anti-war propaganda. It is vital we use democracy and our freedom, and don't let others abuse it. Thank you.